Hello and welcome to our Street Soccer United podcast with me, Keith Mabbott, founder CEO of the Street Soccer Foundation. And on today's episode, I've got the amazing and brilliant Kevin Thorpe, director at Big Jam Studios and international music producer. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. Now, way before Big Jam, rolling the years back, you've worked your whole life in music, starting as a DJ on London's Dream FM back in 1995. Did you always want to be a DJ, and how did you first get the job at Dream FM?
Thanks for having me, Keith. How I got on Dream FM is a very interesting story. My dad had split from my mum, so moved out and had lodgers in his house. And the lodgers were best friends with the guy who ran the radio station. And they put in a word for me one day when someone didn't turn up for their show. And I got rushed down there to cover, did the slot, did a really good set, and got offered a regular. Now, bear in mind, then I was only 15 years old, still at school, and my school teachers were tuning in to what was then an illegal radio station to listen to me playing rave music. So right place, right time is how I got there. And to answer your other question, yes, I'd always wanted to be a DJ. Since the age of 13, I got my first belt drive turntables, and I got my mum a lot of complaints from the neighbours from my DJ antics. So literally from 13, 14, 15, all I was doing was buying records and making noise.
That is brilliant. What a story. 15 years old, teachers tuning into an illegal station, and there you are. What a way to make the best of what might have been a perhaps a sort of difficult situation for you on a personal front with obviously to do with your parents. But superb, Kevin. Love that. Right place, right time. And amazing that from such a young age, at 13, 14, you knew what you wanted to be and clearly went after your dream. Just fantastic. So DJ Kevin Energy Thorpe was alive and kicking. I think it was 96 to 2011. You toured all over the world. What were some of the standout memories you have from that, Kevin? You know, those years going around the world. And do you have a favourite gig of all time that you played?
Favourite gig moments, hey? Well, there has been many. As a consistent, performing in London was always my favourite thing because it's my hometown. So the Fridge in Brixton or Brixton Academy are two venues that stand out, as well as Coco in Camden. There was an event called Frantic, which was an all-day event on a Sunday, and I used to perform there. It was phenomenal. The whole place was packed. But touring and looking further afield, Australia seemed to love my music, and especially Adelaide in South Australia. And one particular time I toured there and I played a rave that was in an old church, and the whole place was absolutely packed. And it was just a magic moment that happened. And I was invited back another year. I headlined after Pendulum on the main stage at a big outdoor festival called the Enchanted Festival. They put me on from 5 till 7 in the morning just as the sun was coming up. I've got the whole thing on video. It's one of the most magical moments I've ever had behind the turntables in terms of just people being switched on to the music and being in tune. But I've been very, very lucky. And yeah, I do miss it. I'm not going to lie. That buzz of adrenaline you get when you're just standing behind the turntables, there's nothing quite like it.
London town being your stomping ground. Love that. And Oz sounds incredible. A packed rave. Wow. And I bet that was some night. A 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. gig. Unbelievable. There is no chance that you would have got me on that. But amazing. Now, whilst working as a DJ, you started developing your own record company, the New Energy Collective, which went on to front multiple albums and over 1,000 singles. Tell us more about that, why you wanted to start your own company in the first place, how you went about doing it, and what do you think helped you achieve such great success with it?
So New Energy Records started in 1998 from £1,000 bank loan, which was a joint project with my dad, who always mentored and supported me. I'd had a couple of tunes signed to other labels, but the contracts were dodgy and I felt like I wanted to be in control of my own music. I had the opportunity to license the music to a big compilation, so I knew there'd be some funds coming in, but I wanted to start a new sound. So without rambling on too much, New Energy was a bit of an offshoot of the popular rave music of the time. I was making stuff that was a bit more underground and a bit more trance orientated. So I formed this label to spearhead that sound, basically. And the first release was tricky. It only sold a couple of hundred, and I pressed 1,000. But I went on to press the second and third because I had the extra income from the compilation licenses. And over time, the fact that I'd formed this new sound and other people come on board with me, moving on to now, that record label is the ultimate founder of freeform underground rave music. And I'm just working on an album now in lockdown, and I've had over 200 people pledge up to £12,000 so far for me to complete an album. So safe to say it's got its space there in time and history and rave culture, and I'm really, really proud of that achievement.
So you all got started with just £1,000 bank loan and help from your dad. What an achievement you obviously made out of that. Making a start from really a relatively small loan and just making it happen. It's really inspiring to hear that, Kevin. So going sort of in from that 2011 point, that I think you completed your farewell tour. You were awarded outstanding contribution to the industry. Then you took a 3-year break and set up then Big Jam Studios. Before coming to that, what advice would you give anyone listening in who wants to kind of try and emulate what you've achieved and get into the music industry and get started?
Well, the music industry has changed a lot since I put my foot in the door back in 1995. What I did then was always be polite, well-mannered, and hassle people, but with a nice attitude and good head on my shoulders. So I was always recording tapes and sending them out to people. When I did start my record label, I researched who to send all my demos to. I contacted press and magazines. And I always did things properly as a respectable business, and always stayed polite and well-mannered to the people that were important and the people that weren't important. And that's very good advice. Always be polite and well-mannered to everybody, because further down the line, fast forwarding many years, those people that were not as successful as me at the time I was being nice and helping them went on to achieve very good things, and they were in positions to help me. And they did, because they remembered that I was nice and respectful and helpful to them when they needed some help. So that is definitely good advice. But nowadays, you have to, as well as being a musician, you have to be your own marketing expert. And I think having good branding, always trying to make yourself look as professional as you sound, having consistent posts, good music, always engaging. It's all about engagement these days and building a following. It is difficult. There's a lot more musicians out there now. Previously, you had to have a lot of studio equipment and invest a lot of money in manufacturing product to be able to have a record company. Now you just need a song which you can even record on an iPad or an iPhone if you want, and a logo which you can make yourself. So there's no investment in money, but yeah, there's a lot more music to sift through that's not as good.
Fantastic answer. I mean, be polite, always hassle people, but with a really nice attitude. I think, clearly in your industry there, it's about recording, getting your demo tapes out and that. But that point in which you make, always be polite and well mannered to everybody in the sector that you want to move into. That is sound advice. I think, regardless of their current role and status when you first meet them, these individuals, it's like you say, it's about connections, it's about relationships, and also from a sort of standing point of view in what you've got to offer, it's about engagement and following. Like you say, get a song, get a logo, and get started. Now, you obviously you now own and manage Big Jam Studios, which is a fantastic video production studio and music studio in Kent. Why did you want to set your own studios up in the first place? And could you describe a typical day in the life of being at Big Jam?
Well, why did I want a studio is an interesting question, because I was still producing all my rave music and doing gigs when I moved to Kent to move in with my fiance, Tracy. And the next door neighbours were a retired couple that lived at home, and they did not appreciate me producing my rave music at home for whatever reason. Can't imagine why. So I was searching for a property to be able to produce my music without offending anybody. And the only property I could find was the first Big Jam Studios in Sittingbourne. And basically, I decided that seeing as I had a public building, I could invest some money and make it a front-facing studio rather than just a place for my own music. And then in the period of time, I decided to stop doing gigs and concentrate on producing for other people, which is a long story to explain. So I gradually phased out being a superstar DJ and focused on promoting Big Jam and producing for other people. And that's how Big Jam Studios was born, out of a desire for not offending my next door neighbours. There's no such thing as a typical day here at Big Jam Studios. Every day is different. It all starts with getting here in the morning and prepping my staff, Ricky and Emily, as to what's going to happen for the day. Ricky's the corporate video manager now, so I'm trying to funnel all communication regarding corporate video through him, because I find that I'm always on active bookings now and I'm not able to communicate as quickly with people. And Ricky's been with me now for 6 years, and he's very qualified, and he's very, very skilled at what he does. So personally, I see clients for music production, or I'm out filming or managing work basically. And the type of clients that come through here could be gospel singers, gangster rappers, punk heavy metal bands, spiritual healers doing meditations, reggae, Afro beats people, electronic music producers. So the range of people that come through this door is so diverse. And of course, don't forget, we do children's parties as well. So there's no such thing as a typical day, because I can be out and about with the camera gear, arranging live streams or corporate video with Ricky, or I can be here just producing musical magic with people. And in the large live video room, we can have a live stream going on for a corporate client, or a load of screaming kids in making a CD for their birthday party. So it's very colourful indeed here.
So it was because of your neighbours. That is just fantastic. So your neighbours, who couldn't basically put up with your noise, essentially made you go out and find your own studios. What an amazingly awesome story. And I love the word you use there, colourful, when used to describe a studio full of screaming kids. That's very, very generous, but I bet they have an absolute blast. What a great idea and offering that you've got down there at Big Jam. So Kevin, we've already come to the final question to wrap today's Street Soccer United podcast. It's been just fantastic. I knew it would be, and it's so brilliant to have you on the show, Kevin. I want to say thank you, a massive public thank you to you. You're a huge supporter and of the Street Soccer Foundation, and you've had us in the studios a couple of times. We did a brilliant England kind of song, didn't we, to mark the occasion, I think a year ago or so, and that was fantastic fun, and we'll definitely get down to your studios again and record some videos and music stuff to have a good bit of fun. But the one question we always ask to finish is, what's the best advice you've ever been given, and by who?
Good question regarding advice. I think one of the best bits of advice that I've learned, probably the hard way, in the music industry, and this is very music specific, is not to take any action on any promises until the promises have been delivered. Because in the music industry, there's so many people that talk the talk and they just don't walk the walk, and they say they're going to do this or that and come through. And if you start acting and making your own plans off the back of some of those promises, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to come through. So you can't consider something as being done until it's literally black and white done in front of you. And that is very music industry specific. There's so many people, mostly with good intentions, sometimes not with good intentions, that just promise things and say things, and you can get excited about this and think that stuff's going to happen, and make your own action in advance, anticipating those things happening. But you know what? It's not in the bag until it is in the bag. And take everything lightly, and just trust in your own ability and what you're going to do, and don't rely on what other people promise they're going to do. That would be very good advice for any musicians out there.
Just fantastic, Kevin. Thank you so much. Don't take action on any promises until the promises have been delivered. It's not in the bag until it's in the bag. It's sound advice. And trust in your own ability. Just, don't rely on others and their promises. Have self-belief and in your own ability and what you can achieve. It's brilliant advice, Kevin. Thank you again very much indeed. Well, there you go, everybody. I really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. You've listened here to the man himself, Kevin Thorpe, international superstar DJ and now director at Big Jam Studios. Be sure to tune in again tomorrow for our next podcast interview.